Hi everyone, welcome back again to the YouTube live. Today's discussion is extremely significant, and the reason why all of us are here, is to discuss on the FII angle and why all of a sudden you've seen this drastic change which has happened from the views of the FII. So today's discussion would be more inclined towards that particular point. Apologies for starting a bit late by a few minutes. I was actually traveling. I just reached Mumbai an hour back, but I somehow managed to ensure that I wanted to join the YouTube live and ensure to conduct this YouTube live. So apologies for the delay of few odd minutes. Uh, but here we are. We are at a very critical juncture for the markets, and we know all of us that this is a extremely pain point for the markets. But today we'll be discussing the exact reason why this selling is happening from the FIS and why the sudden change of stance which is happening. Why all of a sudden the love from the FIIs which was there for the Indian markets is turning into hatred. Is this a short term kind of a switch? Is this a long term switch? Is this a major switch? Or is this just about some bit of profit booking for our markets? So we'll discuss all of that particular aspect, all of the angles. The important points and the takeaways would be what's actually going to be a strategy which you should be adopting when you are looking at trying to shield your portfolios from market corrections, and especially in these times, because in these times I'm sure all of you guys would be feeling the pinch very hard, right? If I'm not wrong. So I don't know, pinch is not a pinch, it's maybe a very soft word in the correction what we've seen the last 5 6 months, and especially in the last 2 months. But I believe that yes, the pain is pretty much on the higher side. And what do you need to adopt as a strategy so that you can try and overcome this phase? And once the market resumes the upward trending mode, how can you be ready? So before we start, good morning to all of you. Thank you so much for taking time on a Sunday morning. Again, it's very heartening to see so many of the responses already coming in. So I just say a hi to everyone: Atin Agarwal, Bhavini Vora, Dharmesh Shah, Pradeep Kumar Roy, Gaurav Joshi, Praveen Menon. Hi Praveen, how are you? Dhruv, Chandru, Jyoti Chajed, Manoharan, Deena Dayalu, Akash, Anud, Andkar, Nimish Goel. Okay, Nimish. So if you guys have any, so I've connected this YouTube live, the video is not working, etc. Then I think what you need to just do, very simple, is just log out and maybe relog in again, because I'm sure that all of you guys are able to watch the video. If in case the presentation just hangs in between, just drop a message. So maybe I'll restart the PPT mode and share the screen. Hi, Amit Singh, Bish, Sandeep Mittal, Shashank Singh, Prateek Modi, Nitin. Hi, Ashish Panchal, how are you? Syed Abdul Mujir. Oh, after a long time, Syed sir has joined. Good. So, again, before we start, just a request to everyone that please ensure that you like the video, you share the video, like what we do every single time on our YouTube live, and especially something which we've started off in the last 2 weeks, almost consistently. I can say I may have missed maybe 1 or 2 days in between a week because of some prior engagements, but my idea is to try and ensure that in these tough times, you need to have someone at least who can throw the experience angle to all of you guys, because I'm sure that most of you guys, or maybe your relatives, your friends, your families, etc., would be new in this market. And because of that, this is the first time someone would have actually experienced this kind of a severe pain after many years. Yet, like, yes, 2020 was a painful year, but वो एक महीना रहा या 2 महीना रहा. If you look at this in a nutshell, it was just a 2 months pain. A pain which, for no obvious reasons, like whether it was 2008, तब था Lehman crisis, 2013-14 या 14-15 का crisis था Brexit, 2000 was dot-com bubble. But no one knows currently why this correction is happening. It's, you see the WhatsApp forwards, you see the tweets, etc., and then you get all the more confused. But then what actually matters is that the prices are telling you something. And if you look at this as a relative scale, there is something which is happening across the spectrum of our markets, which is causing this pain for India as well as for the stocks. So, without much ado, yes, I would request everyone to ensure that you like, share the video, click onto that notification button, because we do this YouTube live on a daily basis, and post market hours around 6 o'clock or something is where we conduct this in a YouTube live. But today's discussion, as I said, is going to be a very important one: the FII angle. What is the FII thought process? What are the FIIs thinking of where Indians are placed, where Indian markets are placed, and why at these levels, say 20% or 30% correction, they are still looking at offloading stocks, and they're still looking at selling stocks and getting raising more cash, and what is the alternative which they have looked out for. So we'll try and give you some sense which could probably help you balance or solve this jigsaw puzzle. So I'll share the presentation. Okay, so I hope you guys can see the. I think the video is black. 1 second. Let me reshare it again. So this is what happens. Technology. Okay, lovely. So I think now I hope you guys are able to see the PPT. Okay. Thank you so much, Pritam Chatterjee. He says India's first data scientist in the field of technical analysis. You are. Thank you so much. Uh, Hanumantappa is asking, did I join the correct link of 16th Feb 2025? Yes, 16th Feb 2025 it is. Correct. So it's going to be an extensive topic, but there are three important terminologies which I will put across in today's discussion, and all three of them are somehow going to be related to you. So आपको you just need to be aware as a thought process. Then that there is a breakout point, then there is a breakdown point, but then there are certain terminologies which I am sure that at least 90 to 95% of the guys of you guys would never have heard about those terminologies. But why those terminologies are very, very significant, and why that could help you maybe take better decisions. I'm not saying that absolutely perfect decisions, but it could help, at least help you get into more better decision making. So we'll discuss that in the second half in the strategy part. The first part is the more interesting one, which is why this sudden love or hatred from the FIIs, and what does it do to the overall market picture. Now, we all know that in this kind of a situation, neither the fundamentals nor the technicals will have a very strong say or a very strong hold, because when there is a fire sale or an exit scenario like what we are seeing from the FIIs in terms of mid caps and small caps specifically, it's going to lead a very significant dent or an impact. So we look at the first basic, points where the markets are currently, and why we believe that there could be maybe some bit of more pain in the slight immediate term, and then how, as a strategy, you can try and take advantage of that. Okay. Again, request to all of you guys, if you guys have any questions, please let's keep maybe the last half an hour, last 45 minutes in terms of solving the questions. If you guys have anything which related to today's discussion as well as the overall market as such, we'll try and avoid stock specific discussion today, because I wanted to keep the theme a lot more macro, a lot more in the overall construct of the market, right? This is the setup of the Nifty 50 chart. Now, this is the setup which we were seeing from 2020-22. If you remember 2022 September, somewhere the markets bottomed, and from there, or June, July bottom, and from there started a major rally. This was a point when the Nifty was almost at 15,000 levels, and we touched a level of 26,000 mark. If you remember, many of the indices, it was the US markets somewhere in mid 2022, these indices bottomed out. Gold as an asset class, 2022-23, gold bottomed out, silver bottomed out. Many global markets, they bottomed out in 2022-23. So this becomes a very interesting starting point as a relative play for our markets with respect to what's happening across the globe. So right now we are at a point where we are realigning ourselves to what's happening into this major trendline support. So at a point where many of the indices so far, like for example, you're seeing the global market indices, the US indices, etc., which are almost at new highs for themselves. You have the Indian markets which have fallen by 15% approximately, almost 15% to 16%. Indices and stocks have fallen more, of course. Benchmark indices, they fall typically less. But then what we are trying to do is we are trying to scale back into a retest of the support line. Now, as I said, there is a very strong likelihood because it's a liquidity driven exit or a selling that maybe FIIs are not looking at a particular level as such. So 22,800 was the low. We tested three times in the last 1 month approximately, but there is no guarantee that 22,800 as a support could hold. Whether the index would go down to 22,500, 22,000 mark, and so on and so forth, extremely difficult to anticipate. So, I'll take you back to the COVID scenario. What happened during the COVID sell-off? If I can just maybe share the charts with you. Yeah, this was the time of COVID correction. Now I know comparing this with COVID could be a bit tricky, but this was a point when COVID sell-off happened. So just as a flashback for all of you guys, so that you can maybe relive those memories, of COVID. I know you don't want to, but still. So at this point of time, in this major sell-off mode, also there were a lot of green candles or green fights which the bulls were showing into, right? The green और a bullish candles which was there. So after a sell off, green candle आता था, ऐसा लगता था कि शायद अभी selling stop हो जाएगी. 1 2 days of pause and then an immediate correction happens again. Same happens over here. So you see this green candle, market opens down, intraday correction, and then in the end, markets tend to recover. Same happens here. Same happens here. In fact, I remember this day on 13th of March 2020, the index I think had hit a lower circuit of 5%. I think if I'm not wrong, if I remember it clearly. And then at the end, we managed to close positive, and everyone thought that hey, अब सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा. And at that point, we were almost at 9,500 or 700 as a closing. But from there, we fell another 2,000 points. So it becomes extremely difficult to anticipate when the markets would bottom. Yes, there could be fewer candles which could lead the charge in terms of a rally, but that doesn't signify that the immediate bottom is at place. That's why I say that just don't be very excited with the first sign of a bullish candle. Yes, it is required, but then what matters ideally in this case are three successive bullish candles. So if you see three successive bullish candles, that's a perfect scenario which indicates that a major probability is that markets could have formed a bottom, because bulls generally require 3 consecutive days to thwart the attack from bears. Right now we are in that situation. So I'll come to current scenario. Yes. So in the current scenario, we have seen 5, 6, 7 days of continuous sell-off. 7 days of continuous sell-off. Maybe there could be few more days of correction, maybe few more weeks of correction. We'll see as the today's discussion progresses. But then don't be excited with just the 1 day of intraday pullbacks and rally. We need 3 consecutive days where the index makes a decent higher highs, closing is also on the higher side. That's where the confidence would be that the markets have reversed or at least showing signs of the first signs of reversal. So that's point number one, which you have to remember. If you are looking to jump into the market right now, just thinking that maybe sentimentally, okay, or emotionally, rethink again, because there are no signs on the markets as such which are showing that the prices have bottomed out, at least looking at the comeback fight or the fight back from bulls. Okay, I hope you got this point. And we come back to the presentation part. Now, this is the chart. This is not the chart of Nifty 50. For all of you guys who are following technical analysis, and I'm sure many of you guys, at least the last 1 year, many of you guys became very quick technical analysts. So, as a technical analyst, what do you see this as a pattern? You see this as a shoulder pattern, right? You can see a head you can see a shoulder, you can see a head, and then you can see a shoulder again, right? Is this a head and shoulder pattern? So if I tell you, okay, this is again not a chart of Nifty 50, but if I tell you this is a head and shoulder pattern, would you be bullish or would you be bearish on the chart right now? This is exactly the chart what the FIIs are seeing. So imagine if you are an FII, imagine if you know a decent amount in terms of technicals, imagine if you have this chart in front of you, what would be your thought process? Okay, and in the next few slides, of course, I'll tell you what exactly this chart is all about. But doesn't it look like a perfect head and shoulder pattern, right? A left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. Trend line is also here, almost 6.75, 6.8 ka trend line hai, correct? What is the implication of this pattern? It's obvious. The implication of this pattern is that it's negative, correct? This chart is actually the chart which is driving the entire decision making, or I would not say the entire decision making, but a 50% impact of the decision making is happening because of this chart. Okay. Is this the dollar index? Pritam Chatterjee is asking. Of course not. It is not the dollar index, but it is something very different. So we in the last 2 weeks in our YouTube lives, we gave you a hint of what the selling, what is the reason of the selling. We gave you a hint, but today we will try and open up the entire Pandora's box and tell you why this selling is happening and what is the chart which is actually causing this concern for the FIIs. Okay, so I hope most of you guys agree with this before we move ahead that this is a perfect or a classic head and shoulder pattern. So for guys who are new, head and shoulder patterns are generally indications that a bearish move is starting off for this for that particular chart, and then slowly and gradually you would probably expect that the chart over here, okay, goes into a very slow, gradual, sometimes very painful kind of a corrective mode. So that's the path which ideally a head and shoulder pattern or a bearish pattern forms. Now we'll see in the next few slides why this selling or this chart, what is this chart indicating? First, we look at that whether we have already reached the excess in terms of the historical corrections for markets. So we know that the pain in this market right now is mid caps and small caps. So I have excluded the large cap discussion as such, but concentration is more on mid caps and small caps. So let us first understand that in the last maybe 15, 17, 18, 20 years, what has been the extent of a 52-week correction of mid caps and small caps. So आपको इससे एक एवरेज जज हो जाता है कि in worst parts of the markets and in an average corrective phase of the markets, okay, what happens to the mid caps and small caps in terms of the percentage correction. So for example, June 2008, I have marked these years as negative. June 2008, 2011, 2020, all of these were news-based corrections, right? News-based why or event-based. 2008 was a subprime crisis, and then 2011 was this pigs and Brexit. If you remember pigs, Portugal, Ireland, Greece, etc., etc. So that was the scenario which was playing out that time. Then you had the Brexit correction in 2013 or somewhere. And then, of course, 2020, we all remember, at least the newcomer bulls all remember that what happened in 2020 as a correction. Now, on a broader basis, mid caps, they generally correct 40% if the selling is on the back of extreme news flow or extreme or severe news flow, which damages every particular major global market, if I can put that into perspective. Small caps, on an average, they correct around 40%. तो जहाँ पे 35 या 40% का एक एवरेज करेक्शन मिड कैप्स में होता है, small caps they correct by say a margin of 40 to 50%. Where are we right now? Okay, and now also in mid phases, these are the phases where there have been intermittent corrections. So the corrections could have been interest rate hikes, the correction could have been maybe dollar index rising. The corrections could have been Russia, Ukraine. The corrections could have been any event which drives the market or the sentiment of the markets as a change on a short term basis. Right now, we are at that point where 2024-25, the mid cap 2 week high has corrected less than average. Okay, I call it less than average because as you but on an overall basis मोटा मोटा 20% 25% करेक्शन हम ब्रॉडली देखते हैं मिड कैप्स में एंड स्मॉल कैप्स दे करेक्ट समवेयर अराउंड 28 to 30%. Okay, 28 to 30%. So far, the mid caps are corrected only 19%, and small caps have corrected only by 23%, which means just looking at this with the prehistoric scale can correct more, especially the mid caps and small caps. I'm not talking of Nifty 50. There is a scope. There is a scope that there could be maybe some bit of more residual correction which could happen into the mid caps and small caps, even they get aligned to the previous zones where the markets have corrected. Okay. Now let's dive directly into the point that what are the major reasons for market selling. Now this is what I could just write very quickly. Like the theme which was initially told to us, which was mentioned across various discussions in the last 5-6 months, that India is overvalued, valuations are very high. We did a PE ratio analysis. I don't know if you guys were there on the 14th or 13th of Feb video. We did a PE ratio analysis of the Nifty chart, and surprisingly, August and September 2024, when the Nifty was at 26,000 levels thereabout, the Nifty PE ratio was not at 28-29. तो जो आपके मेजर टॉप्स जो बने हैं मार्केट्स के मेजर टॉप्स लाइक 2000, 2008, three major tops which have happened in the Nifty, okay, has happened when the Nifty trailing PE was almost at 8 to 30 का scale के बीच में. So 28.7, sometimes 28.9 and so on and so forth. That's the Nifty trailing PE ratio. Currently, or rather, let's go to September 2024, the Nifty trailing PE was almost at 24 point something. So I think Nifty Blaster has given us a number 24.25. Yes, thank you so much, Nifty Blaster. He's given a number that September 2024, the Nifty PE was not at an extremely overbought. So which means that the first angle is ruled out. That was India overvalued as such on the larger cap theme? On the larger cap theme, it was not, because we were not closer to those 28 and 29 PE ratios for the indices. Yes, the mid caps and small caps could probably have overshot, and that's when the correction generally could be in excess there. The second part is taxation for FIIs. Now, recently, I think the last 2-3 days, क्या हो रहा है ना अभी सबके ट्विटर और इंस्टाग्राम और व्हाट्सएप हैंडल्स पे once you start reading the comments ना, it's actually their sentiment which is coming out, of what they have faced or seen in this market. Trust me, I've been to this market in the last 20 years physically, and maybe over the last 30 plus years, or as on a very calculative mode. Studied major bear markets across global indices, across global charts. I've seen the historical trends for Indian market corrections even prior to me joining the market on a physical basis. But we've not seen that one particular issue could lead to a very sharp, consistent exodus of FIIs as such. So the discussion which is happening across many WhatsApp groups and the social media forums is that अरे FII का taxation ज़्यादा है उसके वजह से they're exiting. No, it is not just that angle. Okay, not just that angle. It could be, maybe it could be 5% of the entire decision making. Okay, tariff scare. That's the another point which everyone is talking about. But what happened in the last 1 month? There is nothing major in terms of a tariff scare which has actually happened. Still, the quantum of selling from the FIIs have increased, right? There is no clarity, ना हमको ऐसा कहीं पे भी नहीं आया है, at least so far in the tabloids in the newspapers on ET Now channel, etc., we've not seen anything that there has been sudden, scare which has happened only for India and not for the rest of the globe. Like US, Europe may be tariffs high, China may be tariffs high, other countries may be tariffs high. But what happens? European markets are actually at new highs. Okay, most of the other emerging markets are closer to new highs, or at least they are 2 year, 3 year, 4 year swing highs. So there's a different picture and a different game which is playing across the globe as compared to maybe our markets. Let's look at why this sudden sharp correction from the FIIs. And now we delve into the exact topic, okay, that why there is a special hatred or a anti-love for Indian markets as such. Now we are at a point where most of the global markets are at new highs. This should be very interesting, guys. So just concentrate over here. Look at all global indices, US markets, including Russell 2000. I don't know if you know Russell 2000 as an index. It's an indicator of the small cap index in the US markets. So last 2 3 years when US markets were moving up hard, it was in the back of the tech index doing well, and maybe the top 7, top 10 names of high market valued companies in US. They were the ones which were taking the major load or the weight of the markets moving up higher. Now, in the recent months, we've seen the Russell 2000, which is the small cap index of US, even that has started to rally. In fact, I think if I'm not wrong, December 2024, just 1.5 odd month back, the Russell 2000 had come back to an all-time highs. Okay, so that gives you a first sense that the global markets, especially driven by US, are at a major highs. European markets, we discussed this in our previous sessions, are at all-time highs. Most of them are at all-time highs, whether it's DAX, whether it's CAC and strong recoveries as well as strong trends in FTSE, etc. Canadian markets at an all-time highs. Japanese and Taiwanese markets are closer to those life high levels. I was actually reading a tweet, I think a couple of days back, that even the Dubai markets are at 11-year highs. Brazil, Bovespa, that index has recovered 10% from its Jan 2025 start. So I think it's almost like 1 lakh 18,000 has become 1 lakh 28,000 or 1 lakh 30,000 for Brazil Bovespa. Korean index was up 10% from its December 2024 lows. I think it was around 2,300 and the index is now at 2,500 thereabouts for Korean markets. So which means, just to give you a first perspective, that broadly, most of the global markets are at a new high. Even, yes, thank you, Aftab, Karachi markets are also at new highs, or almost at new highs, and especially from the September lows. But then there is one major reason why Indian markets are selling, and it's benefiting almost exactly or a diagonally opposite towards one set of global market, which is that. So Thailand, of course, is the other market which is also at a receiving end. India and Thailand, these are the two markets which are at the receiving end. What is the reason for that? There is a strong evidence on the charts, extremely strong evidence on the charts, and then we'll try and see with this evidence why only certain set of stocks, like in the last 6 months, there are certain set of stocks which have fallen more than its immediate peers. Okay, certain set of stocks which have fallen more than its immediate peers. So that will also help you understand that why this reason is becoming a very obvious reason and why the money flow is happening from the FIIs. That's because of China and Hong Kong markets. That's the primary reason why you are seeing the money which is flowing out from India actually moving into Chinese and Hong Kong markets. So first we look at the charts. This is the Shanghai index. September mid, if you remember the selling for India, let's look at the chain of events. September says suddenly the narrative was India is becoming overbought. 27 September, 26, 27 September, we made a high for India, right? What happened 1 week or one fortnight prior to that? There was stimulus across China, massive stimulus rounds which started to come back into China. That led to the Shanghai composite move from 25 2600 in a shot towards 3600. So there was almost like a 30 to 40% move or a jump in the Shanghai index post that. What happened after that? When the markets moved up higher, the FIs thought that up significantly higher. But then, if we have to allocate money to here, has to be done. One is that the picture should not be made very clear that money is moving towards China. So after the first round of stimulus, if you try and recollect the set of news flow which was going on, suddenly there was a point at October November में नहीं China market में there is no money which is going. Okay, it is something else. The FIs are selling because of something else. The second narrative which started off was that India is becoming overvalued in terms of fundamentals. But as we saw in the PE ratio charts, that we were never close to the overvalued zones like the bubble territories, as we call it. We were never close to that in terms of the trailing PE ratios for the Nifty charts. But then the narrative which changed was that money has to start reallocating itself from one emerging market towards the other major market, which was in underperforming market for the last maybe 7, 8, 10 years. The other index, which is also forming a very similar chart, was of course the Hong Kong index. Okay, you see, this was the chart from mid of September. We saw the money moving towards the Hong Kong index, the Hang Seng index. It fell sharply. Everyone thought that hey, the money is which was moving up higher was maybe temporary shift. But then FIIs, as an or institutional players rather, if I can use that word broadly, as an strategy, they start looking at these kind of dips as a zone where to start allocating capital, because there they can strategically start to allocate capital one by one. Okay, whether you want to invest in a particular sector in a country, whether they want to go all out in a particular large cap index or the benchmark indices, or look at specific stocks. So the strategies, okay, they don't implement their strategies in just 1 or 2 days, and they don't love an index which moves up 20-30% in a matter of short span of time, because they need time. They need time to accumulate, even if it's with respect to one of the major indices like China and Hong Kong. What's the major change which is leading for FIS to shift? So if you go back, is this because now when we see this from 2024, these indices are up 30%, 40%, right? From their 2023-24 lows. But then when you look at this in the context of the last 10 years, Shanghai was 6,000 in the year 2007-8. Right now, we are almost at 3,300, which means they are still available at a 50% discount from their lifetime high levels. Hang Seng, which was almost at I think 33,500 or 34,000, that index is now almost at 20,000, 22,000, which means again over here the index is down 35 to 40% from its previous lifetime highs. तो अगर हम lifetime highs की बात करें from an institutional perspective, what's happening? These global indices are actually looking very lucrative because there is a stimulus push which is happening and a major round of recovery across many sectors which are happening. So we did a fund flow analysis also. Apparently, I don't have the data right now, but maybe in this week when we do a YouTube live, I'll rephrase that data for all of you. We did the FII inflow comparison in September 2024. In the second half of September 2024, there was a massive inflows of FIIs into China and Hong Kong. First week of October, inflows started to drop down, and then the inflows in the next subsequent 3 months started to be much more average and slightly above the first week of October numbers. So the inflow started to increase gradually. Now, when you look at this in terms of the rupee, Indian rupee has fallen, Indian markets have fallen, mid caps and small caps have corrected. It is not as if that the stocks or the indices have corrected 15%, 20%. That because we as investors, we feel that maybe the major pain is out for India because we've fallen by 20%. But for the institutional players, I'll give a very simple example. If your 100 rupees in one market becomes say 200, and if in the other market the 100 rupees is actually available at say 50 rupees, you would look at shifting your money from 200, the excess of returns which you have earned in one market, and you would start to reallocate to a market which is available cheap. Correct? So the excess money or the gains which you have earned in one market, you would want to take that money out and shift that money and reallocate towards an economy which the institutional players believe that is on the verge of a major multi-year turnaround, right? A multi-year turnaround. That's the major reason, okay, major reason why Indian markets are seeing a major withdrawal of FIS, and that too almost consistently. The other chart, okay, so I don't call it as the FII selling, I call it as the FII rebalancing. It's an asset allocation rebalance for the FIIs, moving from one market to the other market. They are not bearish on India. I'll repeat that word. They are not bearish on India. For them, it's just reallocation of capital, rebalancing of capital. There was an excess money profit which was made here, trim that out positions, reduce the positions over there, and then come back and look to invest that capital into some other emerging markets where the probability for making money would be far more higher. And by making money, the quantum of leap which they can take from here on. Because when 2014, for example, when Narendra Modi, Shri Narendra Modi, when he became the Prime Minister of India, there was an expectation that India will start to do well. FIA started to look at India as a more attractive destination. What happened from 2014 to now 2025 so far, or 24 so far? The Indian markets gave returns of almost like doubling off over the last 5 to 10 years. Now that's what probably the institutional players are looking at when they are looking at emerging markets, or markets like China, Hong Kong, etc. They are not looking at this as maybe a 5% or a 10% move. They are looking at this as a decadal move, that over the next 5 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, the excess money which was created here will come back and reallocate itself. The chart which governs over here, you can see this chart. This is the chart which I was discussing at the start, the Nifty versus Shanghai chart. Okay, Nifty versus Shanghai chart. Every time where we've seen that the Nifty versus Shanghai chart has topped out or it's gone through a reversal, whether it was 2005, okay, whether it was 2013, and these are not those points of 2008 and 2020 and so on and so forth. ये वो वाले points नहीं है, ये random points है in between. So in between a major bull market, there is a certain point where India starts to underperform and Shanghai starts to outperform. So when the ratio falls, the denominator rises. So in this case, the denominator is Shanghai Composite, the numerator is Nifty. So when the ratio falls, the numerator either remains there or falls, and the denominator rises. So over here, 2005 to 6, 7, there was a 1.5 or a 2 year shift which happened. So 2005 फेब अप्रैल के आसपास स्टार्ट हुआ था, मार्च अप्रैल के आसपास स्टार्ट हुआ था, मूव्ड ऑन टुवर्ड्स 2006 एंड, 2013 स्टार्ट हुआ था, 2014 मिड के आसपास हुआ है, 2024 आई लेट्स जूम इनटू दिस पार्ट नाउ. You can see this, zooming into this yellow circle, as you can see, gives you a perfect head and shoulder pattern, right? A perfect head and shoulder pattern, which we discussed in the first slide. So that tells you that right now, the balancing process which is going on has taken the first stage. We are in that first stage of balancing process from the institutional players, because historically, whenever the money has moved, whenever India underperforms the Chinese market, it's not been an underperformance for 3 months or 6 months, it's actually been almost 1 year. So almost 1 year, Motamodi, is the allocation point for Shanghai to complete that phase of underperformance into a outperforming mode. So which means there is a strong possibility, okay, which means just this chart is telling you a strong possibility that in the next 3 months or 4 months, India may underperform vis-a-vis China. I'm saying underperform. I'm not saying correct. Why? Because right now, what you can see is that Hong Kong and Chinese markets, they have started to move aggressively high. So, अगर आपको we'll go back to the chart. Yeah, this is the chart for Hang Seng. You can see this. The pace of rally is getting intense. तो आपका न्यूमरेटर शायद वही है, 2-5% माइनस में होगा, बट आपका डिनोमिनेटर अग्रेसिवली बढ़ रहा है. So that's why I would say India could relatively underperform with respect to the global indices, and especially Hong Kong and China. So you can see this year also from 2025 lows, Chinese markets have started to recover, where India has continuously been making lower lows on a relative basis. So I hope this chart is very, very clear to all of you guys, right? And the theme is now getting clear that we are now in that zone where if Chinese markets moves aggressively high, Hong Kong markets move aggressively high, the stall for Indian markets could happen. So we may stall, the selling may stall. But if the global markets like Shanghai and Hang Seng, they remain range bound, then more selling pressure could come into our markets. I hope you can see this and imagine with the ratio analysis which you've done, right? So if the denominator increases high in a speedily manner and the numerator remains there, that also could help the ratio fall sharply. Or if the denominator remains, say, slight constant, then the numerator has to drop down. Okay, let's hope that it is the former and not the latter. Let's hope that we see maybe the Chinese markets moving up higher. Now, the other aspect is why there is a certain set of stocks. Now, yeah, what is common in these sell-offs for these stocks? Okay, first I'll discuss that and then maybe go on to the strategy part. What is this interesting set of stocks? Tata Motors, Sumi, Bajaj Auto, Deepak Nitrite. These are maybe few names, just few names out of the lot. You know, these stocks were the ones which corrected first. Tata Motors went through all of a sudden correction September se. Bajaj Auto, same. Deepak Nitrite, at a point where the other peers, for Deepak Nitrite, when these stocks are at 52-week highs or these stocks are recovering, why Deepak Nitrite has fallen sharply? Why maybe a few other names? I'm not saying exact names like HEG, etc., etc. Why there is a certain set of stocks as compared to the other peers? Okay, that answer could help you solve entire part of the mystery that why there is a certain excess of stocks, Indian stocks, which are underperforming, which have heavy exposure in one particular economy. There's something which the charts of which I explained. Right now, you're sensing why Tata Motors, apparently, just to give you a sense of hint, the highest or the best numbers of Tata Motors, I would not say best, but one of the better economies where Tata Motors has sold premium Jaguar or JLR cars is actually China, right? China has been a major market for Tata Motors. And there could be a point where maybe the other companies which are selling in China, okay, these stocks are underperforming, and maybe the local companies over there are seeing more demand as compared to the outside companies. I'm just throwing you a hint of why specifically these stocks from the rest of the other peers you've seen that these stocks have underperformed. So you can do this analysis maybe in depth for why there have been certain stocks which have moved completely different from their overall peers or immediate competitors. Now, in this market, in this scenario, there are a few terminologies which you have to be very, very careful of. So, okay, as per our discussion, when we discussed with a few major FIIs, this has been the major broad view, which I thought I'll just put it across to all of you guys. The selling for the Indian markets, okay, could make the indices move maybe slight bit more lower levels in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So, as I said, what they are waiting out for is that if there is a major up curve in China and Hong Kong markets, the selling for Indian markets could stall or stop relatively, because they would not want to buy these markets at an excess. They would not want to buy these markets at an excess or an overbought point. They would want these markets to cool off. So right now they are in that zone where they're either raising their cash from the Indian markets or deploying the cash towards China and Hong Kong markets. Entire allocation which they were wanting to look for. So as I gave you a rough example, that if 100 has become 200, so that means that there is an excessive capital of 100 which they have earned as profit, and 100 which was 50 in this particular market. So that 50 maybe has become 60 or 70. This 200 has become now 160 or thereabouts. So it's not as if they want to make it 100, but they are looking at rebalancing this to a particular number. But that number has not been completed. So that shifting of capital has not happened. This is just, again, this could give you an observation that this is not an end of a bull market for India. Okay, perspective. Right now, the point which they've re-emphasized is that it's just an asset allocation change for the FIIs. It's just rebalancing from one market to the other. Now, for example, I'll give you an example. अगर आप होते, आपके पास में कैपिटल होता, you were at a point maybe where the Nifty was at 26,000. Imagine if equities over there on a historical basis would give you returns of maybe 6% to 7%. But imagine if that point of time, say bonds would give you returns of 8.5 to 9%, right? If the 10-year bonds give you 8%, 9%, if equities at some point would come out to be maybe 6%, 5%, 6%, what would you do? What would you do as an individual? You would, of course, start to reallocate your capital from equities because it may give you less returns and come back into sort of surety where there is a chance of higher returns. Imagine the same point from an FII angle. Now comes all the points like your rupee depreciation, rupee going to maybe from 84 to 88 plus, and then why? Because of the rupee, because of the taxation angle, maybe the scale of growth for India may not be as high from the FIIs as compared to moving to other asset classes. This also indicates why all of a sudden gold starts to move up higher, where I'm sure all of you guys are hoping and thinking that why silver is not moving. Gold was at 75,000, I think in 2024, silver had hit 1 lakh. Okay, gold is now at 85,000, 86,000, 85, 86,000. Silver is still at 95,000 or 95, 93,000 thereabouts, right? You see the change which is happening. There is no rise of inflation. There is no rise of fear across the globe. Everything is in a calm mode. Everything is in a calm mode. आप इंडिया से बाहर निकलोगे ना, जब आप global as an FI investor की तरह सोचोगे, so everything is in a calm mode across the globe, except for of course Indian markets. But there is an allocation or shift of allocation which has happened to only few asset classes. Only few asset classes right now. Okay, so this is just a change of asset allocation. This is not the end of India bull. This is just a sudden speed breaker, okay, which has happened to the Indian markets. So this should at least soothe or bring down your nerves, which are at a point right now into maybe a panic mode, because जैसे asset allocation shift हो जाता है, once the shifting of the asset allocation happens, companies को कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा यार. I mean, I'm not a fundamental guy again, but just to give you a very strong, simple sense, if the FIs put in more money in a particular stock or reduce their money in a particular stock, will it actually impact the earnings of the company? You know? Do you think it should impact the earnings of the company? The company will keep on performing. Okay, if there are certain strong companies, so that's why as a strategy, when most of the discussion from maybe the so-called market gurus is that shift your capital from these expected so-called mid caps and small caps, where there was a story which was being sold, there was a fiction which was sold, and move into stocks where there is credibility, where there is data, where there is strong numbers, है ना? And that's why if you've seen again go back to the previous in the discussions which you did on a relative strength, which are the stocks which have done exceptionally well in this scale in the last 3 months, 6 months of the markets? Kotak Bank, surprisingly numbers good. Bajaj Finance, numbers good. Bajaj Finserv, numbers good. SRF, good numbers, strong data points emerging. So stocks, again, this is not a recommendation, guys. This is just to give you a sense that right now, if there is flood which is going on, if there is I'm not saying a tsunami type of scenario, but there is a chaos type of a scenario which is happening. It doesn't mean that you start allocating more capital on the mid caps. The first strategy should be come back, look at solid large cap names, because they will give you the first advantage when the markets move up or when there is stability which comes back into the markets. That's point number one. The three terms which I'm sure you would never have heard and which we'll be discussing today, very interesting. So, just to sum the FII angle before we move on to the last part of our presentation, is that the recovery, which most of these guys are saying, should mostly start off from the FII perspective, mostly start off from March. Okay, which means that maybe the rest of the month of February also we could see heightened volatility, except only for the scenarios where China starts to rise aggressively or overshoots in the near term. That was the exact word. If China overshoots or if India falls very much. In only in those scenarios will the shift of capital happen back again, or will the selling pause or a stop again from the FII angle perspective. Now, the three terms which I'm sure you would have never have heard, but I would urge everyone to look at these 3 points and just ensure that which point and at which point how you have to react in this scenario of the markets. So the first point is actually the point of, I'll take bag holders first. Bag holders is actually a point where newcomers or inexperienced traders and investors, they're actually left holding the bag after a stock or a market collapses. बहुत बार ऐसा होता है, हमने देखा है. Like again, just to give an example of few stocks like Yes Bank, DHFL, ILFS, Jet, etc., that there was sudden love for these stocks. Okay, when these stocks were falling sharply. Okay, because everyone thought that hey, the company was doing well last year, अब वो 30% discount पे मिल रहा है ना? So why not buy these stocks again? Markets always remember in these kind of situations, in extreme euphorias as well as extreme panic scenarios, markets will also throw classic signals which tells you which stocks to stay away and which stocks to lap onto. Right now, stocks which are underperformers are underperforming for a reason. Okay, like the names which I just highlighted, few of the names, where all of a sudden within their entire sectors, these stocks have become underperformers. Okay, so I'm not saying that these stocks will fall in this category, but don't just be into a zone where because these stocks are available cheap that you would want to buy these stocks. Wait for decisive signals of turnaround. The signals of turnaround could be anything. Signals of turnaround could be technicals. It could be that these stocks come back above their averages. It could be when buyers make a comeback. It could be when maybe fundamentals improve. It could be maybe when the events surrounding these stocks, which is hampering these stocks from a global one economy, one country perspective. Once that event starts to soothe these stocks, only then I believe that you should look to start switching or shifting. So don't be a bag holder. The second thing, what you also need to do, or rather, of course, not to do, don't go into a Texas hedge. So Texas hedge basically क्या होता है? When markets are falling, क्या होता है? I think most of us would have raised at least 15 to 20% of cash by now. Some of them would have raised more, of course. So most of the times we feel that when markets are falling aggressively, हमको क्या लगता है कि जो हमारी लूजिंग पोजीशन है ना उनको एवरेज कर लेते हैं. सो लेट्स इंक्रीज द रिस्क इंस्टेड ऑफ हेजिंग इट. राइट, दैट्स ऑफ कोर्स, बिकॉज अब अगर हेजिंग करने को बोलोगे तो लगेगा कि अब क्या हेज करना है यहाँ पे. पोजीशंस तो ओपन है, पोजीशंस ऑलरेडी डाउन 30-40%. But this could actually be a point where you should avoid the Texas hedge, because if you do the Texas hedge, which means if you go for increasing of risk positions, you are looking at blind betting on the stocks just because the sell off has been aggressive. This could worsen the conditions in most of the times. So now you could be feeling that if in the last 1 month you would have averaged out certain stocks just because they were falling or they were lower than your cost price, okay, just because they were lower than the cost price without seeing anything else like the technical parameters, the fundamentals, the relative strength, etc., without seeing anything else, आप just buy कर रहे हो because वो सस्ता available है. Okay, my point is that look at the quality of what you are buying. If you think it is quality, if it has stood the tough parts of the market times, only then I would suggest that you start looking at maybe increasing some exposure over there. But avoid trying to take a Texas hedge where increase excessive risk unnecessarily. Don't be overexposed in one direction. Okay, because generally Texas hedge is more of a sentimental decision. It is not a rational one, right? What is a rational sense? Rational sense यहाँ पे होना चाहिए. अगर मैं निफ्टी की बात करूं, rational sense होना चाहिए. Hey, let the nifty break a certain critical moving average. So maybe 23,500, 23,800 could be a good point where the nifty could confirm a breakout. I will buy, I will average maybe 5%, 10% higher, but only when I have confidence. Because my point is I want to bet on the turnaround rather than on the way down and then expecting that maybe the way down could halt. But what if the stocks keep on falling further? The third point is also very interesting. Have you heard the term uncle point? Okay, uncle point, and there are like many such terms in the markets. And maybe in the next YouTube lives, we'll try and discuss many of the terms one by one basis. Uncle point is a market basically which gives you an informal signal of market capitulation. So basically, it's a signal or it's a point where traders or investors they start to hit their breaking point, boiling point, and they start to exit their positions. ओके, सो जैसे कि एग्जांपल दे रहा हूं. फॉर एग्जांपल इन अगस्त सितंबर 2024 everyone was looking at, hey, your taxi driver, your carpenter, your co-worker, etc., everyone had much higher portfolio risk at that point as compared to maybe you at certain point of time. That was a point where the markets took reversal. Uncle point is generally considered to be a point where traders or investors start to feel negative, extremely pessimistic. Okay, they surrender themselves to the market. There is a sense of frustration which has happened because of the extreme loss they have faced. So in English, there is a phrase called you throw in the towel. Okay, and you say that I just can't take it anymore. The terminology starts off or originates from the point of idea when if you're being beaten down, there comes a point where you know that you have to surrender. That's a point where you will start to cry, uncle, uncle, please help me, right? In a fight. So that's what we call as the uncle point. Generally in markets, I'm not saying this scenario specifically, but generally in markets, 15, 16 correction, 11 to 13 correction, 2008 and correction, even prior points where all of a sudden the bearishness of the markets starts to become very visible in conversations. जैसे बुलिशनेस होता है वैसे बेरिशनेस भी होता है जो कॉन्वर्सेशंस में हाईलाइट हो जाते हैं. Those are the points which we call as uncle points, where traders lose their grip, they start taking sentimental decisions, they are frustrated because of extreme losses, and their boiling point is reached, and they start to exit their positions left, right, and center. That signal most of the times indicates a major market bottom. So what are sentimental signals? ये होते हैं वो sentimental signals which you can see in your surrounding itself. So just gauge where the uncle point could be. So you can gauge from your discussions with your friends, with your colleagues, with your peers, with your employees, etc., of where the pinch is, where they are feeling the pinch, and whether the uncle point is hit for all of these guys or not. If it is, then maybe that could be a point where the markets are into a sharp capitulating mode. That could be a point where the markets may signal some bit of bottom. So हम कहते हैं the best way to try and look at the reversal of the market is wait for the taxi driver indicator to reverse, right? Where if you're so that's the saying in the markets in the Wall Street, that if the taxi driver starts to be bullish, then you know that it's time to get out. And when the taxi driver indicator says that, hey, I don't want to put money into the market, I want to step out of the market, maybe that could be a point where the markets could sentimentally form a major bottom. So, and of course, so that's from my side. And all you have to do is just find out the common points for these stocks. There are many such stocks. There are like 10, 12 such stocks, different sectors, some of them, which have fallen sharply. Okay, and there is a major reason, one major reason why suddenly these stocks have fallen, because nothing has changed. In fact, अगर आपको ध्यान हो, I think दिसंबर में डेटा आया था, दिसंबर या जैन का डेटा था, where Tata Motors became the largest selling car or the highest market share, I think, if I'm not wrong, for passenger vehicles. Again, as far as I can recollect, it managed to overtake Maruti, right? For the first time, I think in the last 13 years or something. So even with such data point, what has changed for Tata Motors and why from 1170 the stock is at 650, 700 levels? Okay, I want all of you guys to think and maybe comment it on the chat box in the video, that what do you think is the major reason why these stocks and slew of stocks which have fallen 40% from their recent highs, and that in a very sharp vertical manner, what's impacted these stocks specifically? Okay, so I hope you loved today's session. For it was a in-depth understanding of what I received in terms of why the sudden selling of FIs. And trust me, on our advisories, we've been very calm with our approach to the markets. We've not gone into an extreme trading. We are just being very opportunistic. है ना, we are just being very opportunistic with our trading right now. We wait for that window. पहले होता था हम हफ्ते में या दिन में हम 3 से 5 कॉल्स हम एक एक सेगमेंट पे प्रोवाइड करते थे. अब ऐसा होता है कि हम एक हफ्ते का 3 कॉल या 5 कॉल देते हैं. तो we've reduced down the trading significantly, but that's what should be the need of the hour. Okay, if you guys have any questions, I'm glad I'll be free. Keep it towards just about markets, and let's not make it very stock specific types, guys. And of course, you can write it on the comment box also. What do you think as the takeaway for today's webinar? Are you getting the exact angle why the FIs are suddenly selling India and just India? And is this any kind of a major bear market? Nothing is signaling that it's a major bear market. Nothing is signaling that it's a major bear market. It's a market, it's a pain which could last for maybe a few weeks or maybe a few months more. But this could be a big opportunity if you look at this after 3 years and 4 years and 5 years. आप retrospectively बोलोगे काश मैंने गोल्ड को 59,000 में खरीदा होता, मैंने कुणाल बोथरा का YouTube लाइव और 89 पे मैंने देखा होता कि जब गोल्ड 59,000 पे था तब उन्होंने मेजर बुलिश कॉल दिया था कि गोल्ड विल क्रॉस 1 lakh. Why do we believe silver or certain asset classes moves up higher? Why we believe, like recently we did a very short term view on gold. I think last week, Wednesday tha, Tuesday tha, we said that gold in dollar terms will hit 28, 20s and 30s thereabouts, and from there we'll start a reversal. Rupee terms, I think we hit 86,000 and now we are almost at 84,000. So to come out at a point of an extreme exuberance and to give a contra signal takes a lot of guts, but thankfully we have those systems and the capabilities of trying to do that. So I hope you love today's presentation, right guys? एक like तो बनता है, एक like एक comment तो बनता है, of course. So let me Abhinav Chaudhary. Okay. However, for any dollar holding buyer entering now, they will find prices much cheaper due to the double effect. Brilliant point, Abhinav. I fully agree with your point. But generally क्या होता है ना, एक साइड की सेलिंग स्टॉप होती है ना, तो दूसरी साइड की बाइंग स्टार्ट होती है. Now, I'll give a very simple example, very classical, of course, different towards market. There was an experiment which was done some time back in almost like a couple of decades back in a particular college. तो एक मशीन होती है, तो एक वेंडिंग मशीन थी. Suddenly, in the next stage of vending machine, after like 3 6, there was a Coke machine which was put in there. So there was a machine of water, there was another machine of Coke. So पहले क्या होता था, लोग पानी पीते थे बहुत ज्यादा vending machine में, because college students, they used to put their money in, take the bottle out, they have to have a sip of water. When Coke was offered to them, of course the sales of bottles dropped and the sales of Coke increased. After a certain point of time, there was only one Coke machine. There was no machine for bottle. Then came in a competitor. So when then some other competitor opened up or took another vending machine. So and apparently the product of that was supposed to be much better. The thought for everyone was that, hey, example, Coke was selling, Pepsi has come, so now Pepsi has a better product. Pepsi ka sales badega. Apparently, what happened? There was this classic experiment. Apparently, what happened? The sales for both started to increase. Sales for both Coke and Pepsi started to increase. Why? So look at this psychologically. First, the choice was water and only water. Everyone moved towards water. Then the choice was water and Coke. The Coke in the sense aerated beverages. The choice or the preference started to become Coke. Then the choice was aerated beverages and aerated beverages. So either Coke or Pepsi. So you know what happens when you are given two worst choices or two choices in a critical scenario? Obviously, both of these options will start to see a rise. So we are in that zone right now where Pepsi has established the machine. सबको लगता है कि कोक का sales down हो जाएगा, but eventually once stability comes back, both will start to do well. So if you can put this into context of Indian markets and Chinese markets, you will get to know what I'm trying to say. I hope you got the observation, right, Abhinav? Okay. Nityam says it's just happening. Yes, Nityam. Great analysis, Alice. Varun Milani, James Bond. Varun Milani is a fantastic guy. He's a very, very dear friend of mine. Thank you so much, Varun. Thank you so much for taking time out, and congratulations, of course, on your marriage. I hope it's going wonderfully well, even in this bear market phase or a bear marketish kind of a phase. Manoran is asking, is there a chance of a pullback? 1 second. Yeah, is there a chance of any pullback? Pullbacks will keep on happening. I showed you the COVID ka chart. There were 2 3 points where there was a sudden pullback. But don't jump on the first conclusion of a pullback. Wait for decisive signals. At least 3 candles, 3 strong candles मिलता है ना, तब जाके पता चलेगा आपको कि हाँ, अब मार्केट ने एक मेजर बॉटम इस्टैब्लिश कर दिया है. So wait for that point. Wait. Is Hang Seng Index good buy now? It could actually be. In fact, so I go back to 2000, September 2022. I did a link on ET Now channel. I think it was 2022 or 2023. I'm not sure the exact year, but it was September month. I mentioned that Hong Kong markets are at a point where they could be at a 13 year of turnaround. And such instances have happened in 30 years for Hang Seng indices. So after every 30 years, there is a repetitive cycle which plays out, and that cycle leads to a major rally for the Hong Kong markets. Of course, the start was slow. बहुत slowly होता है. हमेशा बुल मार्केट की जो नींव होती है, जो middle of it, there comes an impetus, there comes a catalyst, and then there comes the sign of. So we are in that zone where the catalyst has just started to enter. The effect of the catalyst will be observed in maybe the next few years, and then the sign of confidence would come maybe after a few years. So if you have that kind of a time frame, then of course, Anurag, yes, you can look at Hang Seng Index. Okay, Dharmesh Shah is asking very specific questions. ऐसा हो सकता है निफ्टी डाउन 22,100 then bounce to 23,700 20,000? It could be. It could be. Which sector is stronger in present situation? Gaurav Joshi. So Gaurav, we did a relative strength analysis just last week. We did a sector comparison. So far, our charts are telling us, our relative data is telling us, banks and financial services. Within banks, also the private banks, and within private banks, the large cap ones specifically. These banks are the ones which so far have shown relative outperformance. जहां पे हमने देखा है कि the money is not being pulled out, but at least it's starting to get redeployed. तो आप नंबर देखते हो ना, एफआई का बाइंग और 10,000 crore का सेलिंग, मोटा मोटी हम, आई डोंट नो द एग्जैक्ट नंबर्स, आई एम गिविंग अ रफ नंबर, बट यू नंबर्स ऑफ सेइंग अरे सिर्फ 6,000 crores का सेलिंग हुआ या सिर्फ 3,000 crores का सेलिंग हुआ. नो, look at it this way, they are selling 10,000 crores worth mid caps and small caps, and they are redeploying out of those 10,000 crores maybe 4,000 5,000 crores into large cap names. Okay, I hope you're getting the point. So it's not, don't look at the net numbers. Net numbers will never throw you a perfect picture. Look at the absolute numbers and look at relatively where the weighing scale is moving. Set of stocks which are not participating in the sell-off, and why there are few stocks which are just falling incessantly in this sell-off. So the major selling is happening here, and the buying part is actually happening in these kind of segments. So you can find it in the relative strength scorecard, which we keep doing on our YouTube live channels. I hope, Gaurav, that answers your question. Ashish Panchal, sir, is gold can be a still good buy opportunity? It can be, but short term wise मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि gold अभी corrective wave में आ गया है. Okay, if you want, we can take gold as a separate topic in the next few YouTube live sessions. Where is the Nifty bottom as per your view, Nityam Shah? मतलब यहाँ पे, as I said, that technicals and fundamentals generally work नहीं करेंगे in these scenarios because there are relative scale which is happening. तो relative scale में हम absolute numbers कभी भी नहीं दे सकते, है ना? I hope you are getting this point. Relative scale में आप absolute numbers नहीं दे सकते हो. तो hopefully if China starts to rise aggressively, then maybe the fall for Indian markets could get arrested here. But if not, then maybe there could be a few more percentage points of correction. Varun Milani says like. I didn't get this, Varun. Sabyasachi, such decline help us to enrich under Kunal Guruji's Gurukul to see greater. Thank you so much. Oh, it's a nice word, Gurukul. Maybe I'll try and redefine the sessions. Kavita Mapani, thanks, sir. Yash, should I wait for Super 5? Yes, of course. You should wait for Super 5. 3 out of 5 stocks generally will do very well in Super 5, but your net numbers will be just about average. Okay, they will of course be outperformers with respect to the benchmark, but there will be a time where you will see excessive amount of returns, and there will be a time when you see modest returns. These are times which you will see modest returns. But again, our research generally is more towards quality. Okay. Bhavin Mehta says, based on this week observation, study of red 8 candles, thought pain is over. Now, unfortunately, still one. Yeah, so Bhavin Mehta, the pain could be short term. As I said, the pain could be over for short term. But as I said, that the exact numbers of candles and the exact turnaround will happen once we start to see at least 3 positive candles. Successive 3 or 3 consecutive positive candles. तब हम ज़्यादा higher confidence में होंगे कि markets would have formed a bottom for itself. Okay, can we predict the top of the market as per your study? If yes, so I can learn from you. Of course. In fact, there is this indicator. Okay, very simple indicator which you use every time. All of you use every time. That indicator gives you almost like a 95% hit ratio in terms of telling you the exact top of the market, and that's the point where you should generally close your positions, generally exit your positions. So that indicator is something which we teach in one of our trading sessions. Vivek Mehta is asking same question. When do we see this correction to last and rough downside levels? Very difficult to gauge. Yeah, relative scale hai. Maybe 22,500 maybe 21,500. That could be a zone. That's what I would assume. But we could rescale depending on where the mid caps and small caps are. Great examples. Thank you so much, Rahul. Any bullishness in gold? Kalpesh Patel says, as I said, short term थोड़ा negative, but हो सकता है कि यहाँ से 3-6 महीना साल भर gold फिर भी better perform करे. Short term, slight negative. We discussed this, I think, on Tuesday or Wednesday on our YouTube lives. That why at 2,800 plus or 28 tha, 2,900 tha for dollar denominated prices, we are over at an overbought zone for gold. Okay, Pratik Modi, I will take silver and gold maybe in the next few sessions for YouTube Live, so that could probably help you give a better understanding. Nifty, Aftab is asking, as per Nifty P ratio, we will not go below 21,850. I don't know, but generally P ratio of 18 to 19 is considered to be oversold for an economy or a country like India. We are nowhere in that bear market scenario. We are not in that end of India cycle. So please don't respond to those WhatsApps which says, hey, it's the end of one particular cycle or end of a trend, etc., etc. We are in that zone where there is rebalancing which is happening. Rebalancing sometimes are very tough, but अगर आप थोड़ा सा काम होके आप market को observe करोगे, you will start to see patterns emerging. You will start to see opportunities emerging. Sachin Dive says, hi Kunal, as always, perfect analysis. This section of world markets is sensible and true insights. Thank you so much, Sachin. Really means a lot. Ashish Panchal, thanks a lot. Okay, your analysis is always superb, no doubt. Thank you so much. Many are asking Nifty bottom. Nifty bottom सबसे best gauge करना है uncle point find करो. Find the uncle point. Talk to people. Talk to people. Find the uncle point. And then once you find the uncle point, I want all of you guys to comment it on the chat box, right in the comment section. Okay, what is the uncle point? Maybe in the next few YouTube lives, I'll ask you, what is the uncle point? What is your uncle point where you will, out of frustration, exit everything, or out of the fear, pain which you've been suffering because of the losses, you will sell off everything. I will want to know what is your uncle point. Okay. So I hope I answered all the queries. Thank you so much once again, guys, for participating on a Sunday early morning. I thought this was very important to soothe the nerves, calm your nerves, and to give you a sense that this is not the end of the world. This is just a shift which has happened. Thankfully for us, thankfully, just as an ending note, thankfully for us, the Indian policymakers are aware of this situation. They are aware of this situation. So they would try to do as many things as possible, okay, to try and make Indian markets more lucrative. So even that could maybe help, stop the market correction a lot more earlier than what a natural course of correction could be. Okay. And then the rupee analysis. Don't forget the rupee analysis. If you've forgotten, maybe in the next YouTube lives, I'll take the rupee analysis once again, where we told you that once the rupee hits a particular point on the chart, and especially in terms of indicators, the end of the corrective cycle could be near. And that's where Abhinav is saying that वहां पे एक point होगा जहां पे FIIs want to convert their money to India, they will have a double advantage. डॉलर्स में कन्वर्ट करने पे रुपीज ज्यादा मिल रहा है, प्राइजेस इंडियन स्टॉक्स के नीचे है, तो वो और ज्यादा एडवांटेजेस बन सकता है. तो वी विल गेट टू दैट पॉइंट आल्सो pretty much soon. Thank you so much, guys. Please let me know your uncle points. Okay, and whether you are going into a Texas hedge or are you a bag holder, right? And we'll introduce new such terminologies and concepts in our YouTube lives. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the video, and hit to that notification button also. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great Sunday evening and brace yourselves for maybe another tough week of the markets, and maybe in the next 1.5 odd month, a tough phase for the market, or one of the toughest phase of the market. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care. Great evening.